What is truth? Does absolute truth exist? Or is the truth relative? This is the topic of this episode of Art, Science, and Truth. I am Steve Adler. You're welcome to ponder the big question of absolute truth. What is truth? The Cambridge Online Dictionary defines the concept of truth as the real facts about a situation, event, or person. In other words, the truth is a thing that is known or proved to be true. Truth is same as a fact. But what makes a fact, a fact? Wikipedia states about fact in science. In science, a fact is a repeatable careful observation or measurement by experimentation or other means, also called empirical evidence. In the most basic sense, a scientific fact is an objective and verifiable observation. So, in a nutshell, truth is objective and verifiable state of the matter. According to this definition, truth is ultimately independent of subjective opinions. Fact is a fact, whether I like it or not. But, could it be just a matter of perspective? What if the truth is relative? Most of us probably know from personal experience that often things can look totally different, depending on perspective. As an artist, I have to deal with this all the time when drawing, or painting from observation. The way a subject or a model looks depends on my angle of view. All the viewpoints in this case are equally true. In certain sense, truth is relative in this case. Let's take an example from my atelier. I have a plaster cast, a statue that I use as a model for drawing and painting. Here you can see the picture of it. Notice how different the statue can look when observed from different perspectives, or when it is put into different positions. All perspectives are equally true, and no one can claim that some particular perspective is the absolute truth of the matter, and that all the other perspectives are false. This would be a ridiculous claim. In this case, the truth seems to be just a matter of perspective. But, does it mean that there are no objective aspects or truth in this statue? Of course not. We can quickly list several aspects that have their objective existence that is not affected by the observer's viewpoint. For example, the statue is of certain size. The actual size of it can be objectively measured with different measuring devices. The statue is also of certain weight, which also can be measured objectively. And the statue is made of certain material. In this case, plaster. Our perspective doesn't change these things. And one last thing. The plaster cast is a depiction of a particular person. Beethoven. Well, nobody probably has any problem with this reasoning. The truthfulness of a simple statue is pretty insignificant, and doesn't probably have great impact on our lives. It seems that at practical level, pretty much all live their lives as if some objective truths exists. For example, how many trust the law of gravity as a fact? Probably all who are carrying something valuable, but fragile, and don't want it to fall on the ground and break into pieces. Or how many trust in the laws of aerodynamics? Probably all who uses an airplane as a means of traveling. Quite many also believe that there exists some objective facts in modern medicine. The examples of the trust in reality of objective truth are numerous. Again, not many probably have any problems with this line of reasoning. But, it's interesting to note that when it comes to question of moral standards, the trust in the existence of objective truth starts drastically decrease. Why is it so? I can only speak for myself, but I assume that many would agree with me when I say that it is because having objective moral standards requires submission to some moral authority outside myself. Desire to do things my own way instead is extremely strong. The idea of having to sacrifice or give up something that I really like is a huge step beyond my comfort zone. Just like is meeting some requirement. That doesn't feel comfortable for me personally. Instead, I would rather like to choose the standards that suit my own personal goals, motives, and feelings. Submission to objective and unchanging moral standards is tough. It requires me to do what is right, whether I feel like it or not. Things seem to get even more difficult when the question of God as higher moral authority is brought up. What makes this idea difficult to accept is because if God exists, and He's the ultimate authority on what is right and what is wrong, I have absolutely no escape from the consequences of my actions and decisions in life. Assuming that God is all-knowing, I can't even have immoral thoughts without God being aware of them. When we go further down this path, we come to religious and theological questions. Relative truth concept is also somewhat popular in this area. Many, who have an appreciation for religion, or spirituality, chooses their religious worldview, according to their own needs and preferences. The possibility of objective and absolute truth is thrown out of the equation as being too limiting. Many may even pick and choose their favorite pieces from different religions and compose their own personal religion from them. Is there really any solid basis for individual being the highest authority on how to worship God? It seems a strange, even somewhat arrogant thought. In other parts of life, people can be very careful about checking the facts and finding out the truth before making a decision about something. What makes religion any different? Maybe it is the confusing amount of different theological and philosophical theories that makes it just easier to settle for something less than the real truth. But the vast amount of theories doesn't mean that some particular theory can't actually be the correct one. Relative truth concept is obviously very appealing to many of us, and for a variety of reasons. But there exists a serious internal contradiction in relativist thinking that we need to be aware of. It is the fact that the concept of relative truth is a self-defeating concept. If there are no absolute, objectively verifiable truths, then the relative truth can't be real either. If all perspectives are equally true and valid, then the concept of absolute truth must be true also. If we continue this line of thinking, we must conclude that no perspective is actually true, while at the same time, all perspectives are true. The equality of all ideas makes human thinking impossible. Thus, relativism defies the basic laws of logic. For example, the law of non-contradiction. Persian doctor and philosopher Avicenna said, "Anyone who denies the law of non-contradiction should be beaten and burned. Until he admits that to be beaten is not the same as not to be beaten, and to be burned is not the same as not to be burned." Thus, the relativist worldview is impossible to live by. It is based on seriously flawed logic and is totally impractical. Like I said, it makes logical thinking and decision-making impossible. It works only for those who can completely embrace the paradoxical thought of everything being real and nothing being real at the same time. Such a person probably doesn't exist. And in everyday life, all rely on some things being objectively true. The true relativist doesn't exist. All pick and choose some things, being more true than others. No one can hold on to an idea of absolute equality of all existing ideas, concepts, and norms, and be a functional part of human society. And think about if relativist thinking was applied to scientific research. For example, medical research. There would be no point for developing better medicines, or treatments, or seeking new better cures for different diseases. If objective truth doesn't exist, there's no basis for seeking truth in scientific or medical questions. If all individual truths are equally valid, because truth is just a matter of perspective, all possible treatments would be equally good for any type of disease. This is obviously absolute nonsense. And what about friends? What type of friend you would like to have? A friend who has no solid standards of right and wrong? Or a friend who has very strong moral principles? Which one you think is more trustworthy? The answer is obvious. But what about the question, can the truth be known? Some have proposed an idea that truth can't be known. Or no one can know anything for sure. Thus, the question whether truth is absolute or relative is unnecessary. No one can know the answer. Because truth can't be known. Just like relativist philosophy. The idea that truth can't be known is also a self-defeating one. Think about this. If a person says that the truth can't be known, then how can he be sure that the truth can't be known? He can't. So, it is possible that truth can be known. Skepticism about truth has obviously some reasonable limits. Otherwise, it becomes self-refuting. Same as with relativism. I know that I'm taking the relativism to its extreme. But I'm doing it to emphasize my point. The concept of objective, or even absolute truth, is a concept that works really well. A way much better than relativism. The proof of it is in our everyday life. We all live as if there exists at least some objective truths. Objective standards and principles gives us a solid basis for making decisions in our lives. No one really thinks or acts like all possible ideas are fully equal. For example, how many thinks that committing senseless acts of violence is equally good as not committing such acts? No sane person thinks that these are equally good options. At the same time, we need to keep in mind that change in perspective matters. When it matters. Perspective definitely affects how we see things. But it doesn't negate the existence of objective reality. Or make all ideas equally good. Like in the case of Beethoven's statue. It may look a bit different from different perspectives. But it doesn't change the fact that it still is the statue of Beethoven. No matter the perspective. Let's end this episode with a quote from ancient philosopher Socrates. A system of morality, which is based on relative emotional values, is a mere illusion. A thoroughly vulgar conception. Which has nothing sound in it and nothing true. This is Steve Adler. Of Art, Science and Truth. Thank you for watching.